Hello, students. Welcome to English class. I'm your English teacher, Mr. Oza, and it is time for us to work on classwork number 53. This is going to be our last introduction video before we start reading our book, The Kite Runner. In this video, we're going to go over some themes and motifs. Themes are like main ideas, life lessons that we can walk away with, and motifs are basically things that you see a lot of in a book, stuff that's some sort of repetitive concept that you see in a book. Before we move on, I just want to make sure that you have finished classwork 51 and 52 so that you know a little bit about Afghanistan and you know a little bit about the main characters that I will be referring to in this video. So, in this picture, you can see right here, my man Amir, this is the main character, a Pashtun boy, Pashtun meaning one of the majority ethnic groups in Afghanistan. And here is his best friend, Hassan. And Hassan is part of the minority ethnic group, the Hazaras. And it's tough to see, but we got to deal with it. Hassan is bullied a lot throughout the course of this story because he is a Hazara. So just one thing to think about as we move along in this book. So we're going to talk about themes and motifs here. Let's do the themes first. What is a theme? A lot of different ways you can answer this question, but I feel like the simplest way to answer this question, it's a deep topic or a concept that the author wants to focus on. So why is the author telling this story? Well, they want to teach us a life lesson. So what are the themes? Those are some life lessons that we can walk away with. So I'm going to give you a list of 3. Pay attention. If you want, you can take notes after you're done watching this video. You're going to answer a few questions about these themes. First theme is redemption. Some might say, if you make a mistake, keep calm and redeem yourself. What does it mean when you try to redeem yourself? If you make some sort of mistake, you might want to do something positive. You might want to do something good to make up for that mistake. This is a popular phrase you might hear. It's time for you to redeem yourself. You kind of messed up. If you redeem yourself, then you're making things right. Maybe you can relate to this concept of redemption. Is there anything negative or bad that you have done in your life? If so, what can you do to redeem yourself? Is there anything that you can do to make things right? And finally, is it important for you to redeem yourself for doing these bad things or negative things? You know, in my life, I can think of an example when I was a freshman in college. I didn't really go to class. I didn't get good grades and I was a poor student, and I kind of disappointed my family, especially my family who sacrificed a lot to help me get into college. What did I do to redeem myself? Well, I improved my study skills. I ended up graduating. I ended up getting a job, and for me, it was important to redeem myself for that negative behavior because I wanted to not just have a good career and a good future for myself, but also kind of make it up to my family who sacrificed a lot to make me able to go to college. But how is this relevant to the story? Our main character, Amir, is on a search for redemption. He did something really bad during his past. I don't want to give away exactly what happens in the story, not yet, but is it possible for him to redeem himself before the end of the story? That is kind of the journey that we are on. Is it possible for him to redeem himself? All right, moving on to another theme. This theme has to do with politics, war, and how those concepts affect our lives. All right, so some of us have had wars impact our lives directly. Maybe not all of us, but some of us have. And if you haven't, then I'm sure you can imagine what it's like to be impacted by war, whether, it is physical harm, whether it's lost loved ones serving in military, or even having to move to escape war. Here are some political issues that people might care about, like what is the legal drinking age? Is it legal or illegal to get abortions? What is the legal situation regarding marijuana, medical marijuana, recreational marijuana? At what age should a person be able to get a driver's license? Is gambling legal or illegal? Scratch tickets, sports gambling, that sort of thing. Are these political issues that affect your life? Maybe, maybe not. If not, then I'm sure you can think of some other political issue that is important to you. Your leadership in the government, whether you're talking about the federal, the state, or the local level, do the decisions that these politicians make affect your life? In some way or another, they do. Do they affect your daily life? Maybe, maybe not. But those decisions at some level are going to affect you. So if we're going to kind of tie a nice little bow around this, if we're going to really put a nice name to it, our second theme here is the intersection of political events and private lives. Sometimes political events affect your private life. How often do politics or war affect our private lives? I know for a fact that, when I was getting my driver's license, that had a big impact on my private life. I was able to get a learner's permit at age 15 and 9 months, and then the law changed only like a year after, and then you had to wait until you're age 16. That's just a very kind of small example. How do we react when politics affect our private lives? How might you react when there is some political decision that affects your private life? One great example of that would be stimulus checks. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the political decision was made to give people stimulus checks. Which really leads to this question, should we do anything to influence politics? My answer is yes on this one, right? Because if politics can affect our lives for the worse, then they can definitely impact our lives for the better, as we can see. I know some people were really benefited by those stimulus checks and other, government decisions. So I ask you, when have political events or decisions affected your life? Think about it. How is this relevant to our story, though? Well, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in the 1980s. This had a major impact on the private lives of everyone in the nation. And so Amir and Baba, they leave Afghanistan. Imagine being a kid, a teenager, and having to leave your home because of a war, right? So this is a political decision, a military decision that really, really impacted our main characters. And speaking of our main characters, we'll jump into theme number 3 right away here, and that is basically the love and the tension between parents and their children. Many parents have a loving relationship with their children. I can say that I, love my 3-year-old daughter very much. There's a lot of love there. But sometimes there's tension too. The relationship is not all love. It does get complicated, right? Bedtime, potty time, eating time, all kinds of stuff. There can be tension along the way. And so, I have a 3-year-old kid. The child in this story starts at the age of 11. We see him grow up to be a teenager. We see him grow up to be a full-blown adult in his 30s. The relationship between Amir and his father, the character Baba, is a little bit more complicated than my life, which is right now, bedtime and baby food and stuff like that. So that tension is an intense part of the book in this relationship. So, parenting is difficult. Here we see parent and their child happy, and here we see parent and their child perhaps in a bit of a conflict. How do these relationships impact young children, especially, at the beginning of this story, the child is 11 years old. Is it an important relationship? Is it important to have a good relationship with a parent? Why or why not? What makes a good parent and what makes a good son or daughter? What roles do the child and the parent have to play in order to have a good relationship? And so, like I said a moment ago, how is this relevant to the story? Well, our main character, Amir, has a pretty complicated relationship with his father, Baba. Also, Amir's mother died while giving birth to him, and so that makes things a little more complicated. Baba is a single dad trying to make things work. He does have a good job and he is able to provide and does make a good amount of money, but that still does mean that he has a complicated relationship with his kid. Next thing we're going to do is talk about some motifs. What is a motif? A motif is a very simple concept, even though it sounds a little difficult. It's an object or an idea that repeats itself throughout a literary work. It's just something that you see a lot of in a book, right? If you see like a lot of wheels in a book, that might be a motif. There's always wheels. The author is always talking about wheels on a car, wheels on a bike. That might be a piece of symbolism with a deeper meaning, like wheels are always turning, so we should always be turning towards the future. We should always be moving forward. We should never look into the past. We should wheel our way forward. That's just one example of what a motif could be. So let's take a look at the motifs that we will learn about here in our novel, The Kite Runner. The first one is non-linear storytelling. This is when you tell a story, but it is told out of order. The storyteller is jumping from the past to the present to the future. All right? So basically, if you imagine a timeline, chapter 1 starts right here. We see Amir as a 35-year-old man, right? And you have one chapter here where you see a quick glimpse into his life. And then you get into the second chapter, and then all of a sudden, we're going back in time. We're seeing Amir's life at age 11, or actually, I should say age 12, right? And then we see the build-up. We see him turn 18. We see him turn 21. And then we see him back to his life as a 35-year-old. And then, throughout the rest of the story, we see him age. All right? So it's basically when you tell a story, but you tell it out of order. We see him in chapter 1, 35 years old. And then, all of a sudden, chapter 2, see a 12-year-old. We see him grow up. We see what his life is like. And then we get back to that midpoint, back to that point of age 35. And then we see how his life goes from here. You might have seen the movie Click with Adam Sandler. This is an example of some non-linear storytelling where you see him kind of travel through time. Another one is Back to the Future. These are extreme examples where you literally have like time travel, but I think those extreme examples are good for you to kind of understand the concept of, it's not necessarily a clear beginning, middle, and end. You're going to actually start in the middle for one chapter, then go to the beginning. See the kid grow up, see him go to college, see him live his life. So this is when a story is not told in a straight line. We move back and forth from the present to the past a little bit. Some people say this makes stories better. It makes them cool. It makes them unique. Some people say that it's confusing. So I'm here to make sure that you don't get too confused. Religion and spirituality. Here is some symbolism of some of the major world religions. Religion and spirituality is our motif number 2. And again, here is some symbolism of some of the major religions in the world. But remember, you don't have to be religious in order to be spiritual. To feel, connected with nature is a way of feeling spiritual. To kind of like watch a beautiful sunrise, to feel, connected with the outside world in whatever way that is for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be an organized religion, but it can be, a person's spirituality is a very like individual thing, something that you get to kind of decide on as you live and learn. So this is an opportunity for us to learn a little bit about Islam. This is a really good book to learn about religious extremism. All right, so this is something that we see in this book. You may be familiar with the religious extremist group, the Taliban. Okay, we're going to learn about the Taliban group, which is, originated in Afghanistan. It's an Afghan political group and extremist group. And so, we do see a lot of references to religion in this story. So Islam is an interesting religion that I would like for us to learn a lot about as we read this novel. Finally, we have physical abuse and sexual abuse. Okay, we did read a lot about sexual abuse in our previous unit in The Handmaid's Tale, and unfortunately, it's very prevalent in the world. It's prevalent in literature. It's something that we can learn a lot about and prevent. Okay, of course, by reading this book and learning about child abuse, we want to be educated on the topic of child abuse. We want to be able to have the tools to actually stop child abuse. The big assignment that we're going to do in the middle of this term is going to have us solve the problem of child abuse, learn the signs of child abuse, and basically, I want us to be able to protect our friends, protect our kids, protect our cousins, nieces, nephews, our little brothers and sisters. That's what I really want us to do. If we can read about it in a book and we can really learn what happens and how to prevent child abuse, I feel like that would be, an awesome use of our time here together. If you see something, say something. That is just, one message to get us started. We see 3 examples of rape or attempted rape in this story. Okay, so this is a sensitive and serious subject. Please be respectful. Of course, when we read those chapters, you're going to get a fair warning. I understand that certain students might be triggered and may not want to read those chapters. I completely understand that. And so you will have warnings along the way in those specific chapters if you want to do some sort of alternative assignment. Okay, so basically, what can we do in society? You guys already know this if you were here in term 2. What can we do to prevent rape? What can we do to prevent child abuse? That is going to be a big part of our unit here in this class. So that's going to do it for our 3 themes and our 3 motifs. I really want to thank you for sticking with me here in this video. I hope you find this content interesting. We just went over 6 topics. You don't have to find them all interesting, but hey, if you connected with 1 or 2 topics along the way, that's it. That's awesome. We're on the right track. So your instructions now: go into your Google Doc where you found this video, answer the questions. You're going to have 1 question based on each topic. If you got any questions, you know where to find me. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed the novel, The Kite Runner. Thanks again, and as always, have a great class.